One of my favorite days of the week is Wednesday. It's the day that the eBay payouts hit my bank account. But when I first started reselling, I was only selling a few items every week and I was working a full-time job. I never even really noticed these payouts hitting my account. As my sales in my business grew, I switched from a personal account to a business account. This is often advice that you will hear other people talk about. But then what? eBay puts some money in this account, and then what am I supposed to do? How do I know how much to pay myself? What amount should I be reinvesting back into the business? Do I need to start saving for taxes now? These were just some of the questions I needed answers to before I went full time on eBay. And honestly, if I didn't discover the method that I use currently, I am not sure that I would have ever been able to make the jump to a full time eBay reseller. This method is now the method that I use to pay myself, pay my business, and pay my taxes. Most of the information that I'm going to share in this video comes from this book right here, Profit First. It completely changed the way I looked at my business bank account and the purpose of my overall business. If you are actually serious about growing your reselling business, I cannot recommend this book enough. I have the link to purchase the book in the pinned comment and the description if you're interested in reading more. Before we get into the actual strategy that I use, I want a quick disclaimer. I am not a tax professional. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a financial planner. I am just simply sharing the methods that I use that have helped me grow my reselling business. There are many different strategies and many different ways to reach various goals that you might have for you and your business. What I'm going to share with you is simply that, just one method to reach the goals that I needed to reach. This is something that works for me and my business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work well for you, your business, and your goals. Please do not take this as black and white advice. This is simply me sharing my experiences while I am still trying to figure everything out. Like most of you watching this video, I started reselling as a side hustle that quickly grew into much more. But as the money was being paid out to me and hitting my business bank account, I wasn't quite sure what to actually do with all the money. To be perfectly honest, when I was doing eBay on the side, I was also working a full-time job and I simply just did not really need the money from eBay. Now, I would use the money for extras, things like a dinner out or maybe even a vacation here and there. However, I never truly needed the money, so the majority of the money would just stay in that account. And there actually wasn't any kind of plan in place for me on what to actually do with all the money in that account. When it came to taxes, I used a very simple spreadsheet and just kept track of all of my expenses. This all worked just fine for me. That was until I actually needed to take money out of the business to pay myself to be able to go full time. When I started to plan and transition out of my full-time job to becoming a full-time eBay reseller, I knew I needed to understand more about where the money was going in my business and how to set it up to know exactly what amount I could pay myself and what amount of money the business needed to survive. I actually read Profit First while sitting on a beach in Mexico on vacation that was paid for by reselling. For some reason, this book just absolutely clicked with me and it made complete sense. So when I got home, I was super excited and I jumped right into implementing the plan. I opened 5 different accounts inside my business bank account and I labeled each of the accounts. The first one was income. The second one was Profit First. The third one was taxes. The fourth one was operational expenses or OPEX. And the fifth one was salary. The way I go about this is actually pretty simple. Whenever I get money inside of the business, whether it's an eBay payout, a local sale, or any other method that I receive money from the reselling business, it all first goes directly into the account labeled income. Once all the money is in the income account, I then redistribute the amount that is in the income account to all the different accounts based on different percentages. Now, I'm not going to share the exact percentages that I use because this is something personal. This is something that you have to decide for you and your business. And in fact, this actually requires you talking to a CPA or at least having a tax plan in place to know exactly how much money you need to set to the side to cover the taxes. So for this video's purpose, I'm just going to use nice, simple, round numbers to make everything nice and easy. So the first thing I would do is take 40% out of the income account and move it to the OPEX account. This is the operational expenses account. This is the account that's linked to my debit card that is used to pay for everything that is related to the business. From shipping supplies and ordering boxes to inventory that I'm buying at the thrift store to even pulling cash out of the ATM for yard sales, all of that comes directly out of this account, the OPEX account. Anything that the business needs comes directly out of this account. The next deposit I make out of the income account is I take 40% out of income and I put it into the salary account. Now, the salary account is where I pay myself from. Any money in here is my personal money. However, it has to be moved out of this account first. I cannot commingle business and personal expenses. So even though I'm putting it into this separate account, it can't be linked to my business and I have to transfer it out. Now, if you're unsure of how to do that or why you have to do that, I highly recommend talking to a CPA about how to take money out of your business. 15% of the money inside of the income account will then be transferred directly to the taxes account. This is the government's money. Now remember, 15% is just the example I'm using here. You're actually going to have to figure out how much money you need to set to the side after you've accounted for how much money you've made in profit after all of your deductions. The best way to do this, once again, is to talk to a CPA and come up with a tax plan. However, when I go to pay my state taxes or make IRS payments, that money comes directly out of this account. The remaining 5% of money in the income account goes right into the profit first account. Now, if you read the book, you'll understand a little bit more about what he thinks the profit first account is about. But for me personally, I use this as a business savings account. Essentially, this is my rainy day or emergency fund. Whether I'm having a slow week on eBay, whether I need more money personally, or whether the business has an expense that it just can't cover, any of those cases come up, I will pull money out of the profit first account and use it to cover the expenses that I need to. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That's an awful lot of work just to separate your money. While setting up the different bank accounts and figuring out the exact percentages that you need to use does take some time, I personally find that once it's set up, it's fairly easy to use moving forward. I simply pull up my bank's app on my phone and I make a few transfers each week. It takes a few minutes and it's over with. If you are enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future content. Now, like I said earlier, this is just one strategy and this might not be the correct strategy for you and your business. However, if you're like me and you struggle with knowing exactly what to do with your money or where to spend the money or how much money you can even take out of the business, this strategy might actually work. He talks about in the book how the business's job is simply to fund you or your goal, not to feed the business. A business shouldn't be set up to eat all of your profit. And I personally found that's exactly what was happening when I first started making money on eBay. I would have a good week on eBay and I'd end up with some extra money in the account and I wouldn't know what to do with it. I assumed money sitting in the account meant that I needed to reinvest it. Oftentimes, this meant that I had to go out and buy something to build my business or scale my business, or I had to go out and buy more inventory. This often leads to overpurchasing things that you don't actually need for your business, or even death piles because you overbuy inventory. But that's not the true purpose of a business. The true purpose of the business is to pull money out and be profitable. For me, that's what the salary account is all about. I think most of us that resell are pretty frugal people to start with. However, we can all get sucked into buying the next new thing or the next new gadget. And that's where creating a budget or an OPEX account can really help you out. More recently for me, my OPEX account and my profit first account have both hit the maximum amount of money that they need to have. This was an amount that I had determined that if I had hit that amount, I didn't need to continue to keep putting money back in the business, that I would personally rather pull the money out. So I have personally stopped putting money back into the business because the business has enough money to run. Instead, I take all of the money that comes in currently and I just pay it out to myself. This is all profit for me rather than money just sitting inside my business waiting for something that may or may not come along. Now, this isn't to say that I might not change my goals and I might not need to build up more money in the business. And once the accounts start dropping below a certain amount, I'm going to start putting distributions right back into those different accounts to build them back up to this amount. I want them to stay right here, right now. So if I end up spending some money, I will cover those expenses, but I'm not going to just continue to build all this money in this business without any actual purpose. My purpose right now is to take all the profit out of the business that I possibly can. This only works because I have determined how much money I need for the business to run and know exactly how much money I spend on sourcing items, how much money I spend on shipping supplies, how much money I spend on gas. Because I have an understanding of the exact expenses that I have, I know exactly how much money I need in the business for it to continue to run and even grow and scale. But I don't have to pile a bunch of extra cash just sitting in the business that I then see as something that I have to spend. I would much rather just pull that money out and pay myself personally. The final thing I want to talk about here is business needs versus business wants. Remember, if the job of your business is to make money for you, then the business shouldn't be wasting a bunch of money on things it doesn't actually need. This is often justified by people saying, well, it's a tax write-off, or I need it in order to scale or grow. Now, if the thing is actually going to help you grow or scale your business, like going and buying more inventory, maybe you have some opportunity that pops up where you can buy a bunch of inventory. If it's something along those lines, then I'm more than willing to spend the money on the business. However, if it's a want, like I want a new computer or I want a new camera, I will oftentimes put it off to the side and really think about whether I need it or if I just want it for the business. I oftentimes find that I'm just making excuses because I don't want to do the hard work. I don't want to actually go out and find the items that I need to find and list the inventory. Those are the only two things that actually continue to put money in my pocket. Finding the best items that I can at the best prices and listing those items as fast as I can on the eBay platform. Outside of those two things, the majority of the other stuff is just noise being sold to us as a way to speed up a process when we know what we actually have to do in the first place. We have to find more inventory and we have to list that inventory. A nice camera or new fancy software sounds really fun. It sounds exciting. It sounds a hell of a lot better than sitting down and actually listing the items, then digging through some bins or going to another yard sale. But those are the things that actually put profit in our pockets. The margins in reselling are often much higher than most other businesses. Most of us have very little overhead. We don't have a ton of expenses, and it just doesn't cost that much to start or run a reselling business, which in the end, if done correctly, leaves us with a whole lot of extra cash. Some of us will spend that money to buy more inventory. Some of us will spend that money in a different way to grow our business. And some of us will take the money right out of the business and either fund our lifestyle or fund another business that we want to build. But the truth is, none of these goals are possible if you don't know where your money is going. So whether you use the profit first method or you use some other way of keeping track of your expenses and asking yourself whether this is a need or a want for the business, it's super important that if we want to be profitable and we want the best profit margins that we can, to truly understand where the money is going when it's coming in. If you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to love this one, so go ahead and give it a click.